Hello beautiful, I'm Tara Love Perry and today I want to talk about victims, being a victim, victimhood, and really how we escape the loop, the poor me loop, because we can get really stuck in that. And I'm going to share with you firsthand from my own experience in my life how I've come from being the biggest victim, honestly quite pathetic, and I want to say that with the most love, not really realizing how frail and pathetic and victim-like I was being at the time, and how I've evolved and changed and transformed out of that state of being, out of that mindset and out of that reality where I'm no longer in the mode of being treated like a victim. I'm no longer being bullied. I'm no longer being abused. I'm no longer being subjected to things that I don't enjoy being subjected to. And this is a real lesson in how to shift the external reality that we face by taking it deeply personally, very personally, and going within and doing the inner journey. And what does that mean? What does that look like? So what's getting my attention in the media most at the moment is the Dakota Access Pipeline protest that's happening in America. I guess there's something in me that deeply resonates and relates to the Native American tradition and culture. I've always felt like that since a child. So I'm very sympathetic to what's happening over there. And I'm watching the videos and I'm seeing these people that have been, slaughtered. There was mass genocide happened to those people and those cultures, and seeing the pain, the struggle, the grief that's still in that land and that's still in those people, and knowing about something, at least a little bit, about the suicide rates amongst the young people in the reservations, the Native American Indian reservations. Sorry, I find that that's quite emotionally evoking. That I feel the pain of that, like those young people just taking their lives because there's so much poverty, there's so many drugs, there's so much drink, there's no hope, or there hasn't been, and so much bullying. They are, if we want to look at victims, we could look at those people right now as just an example. I mean, there are many people being victimized on this planet and treated unfairly, I agree. We can just look everywhere, and maybe you have a specific cause or issue that's really personal to your heart right now that you're really feeling for. So let's just use that as an example. And I'm watching the videos and I'm seeing people come from this place of victimhood and feeling the pain and feeling the grief and saying, don't treat me like this anymore. We will not be treated this way. We're not going to have our lands taken. And they're rising up and they're feeling a sense of power to stop the bullying, stop the harassment that they're receiving and the abuse. Now, when I look at my own personal story about this, okay, one, I can look at that as a media issue and get caught up in my pain and my suffering, and I can identify and go, yes, their grief, yes, their suffering, I can relate. What can I relate to in my own life experience where I can say that something similar has happened to me, and I can feel that and empathize with that. And then I can pray and have hope and want that to change. But what I really noticed that I myself have done, and many people I notice do this, it's like praying from a place of pain. Feeling the grief, feeling the sadness, feeling the disempowerment, and almost then think of that as like a cake full of pain and suffering, and then putting the icing of prayer on the top saying, but let it all be good. Let this thing that I'm offering, my prayer, full of pain and sorrow and woe and struggle, please help us and let there be hope and may the bad guys not win. It's like putting a layer of icing over the top of a pretty shit cake and hoping that that's going to do the job. Now, I'm not saying that that's true for everybody, nor am I putting that down. I'm not dissing that as not the right thing to do. But how I experience it and what's really worked for me is to do something a little bit different. So I'm just going to share with you, I don't really even know if this is appropriate. Maybe I'm telling you a little bit about me that's too much, but it's almost 20 years ago now that I was married. I got married at the age of 24 and was really quite bullied into it. I'd been ill for 10 years. I was very much, let's say, not grounded, not in my body. I was literally very skinny, very frail, very airy, very up and out there. I was like a little fairy. People even said that I floated and I didn't walk. I was really out there. And I won't go into that now, I might be honest, but basically I was in such a vulnerable place. I was very delicate, very innocent, very hopeful, full of love, full of light, but very, very unsolid. And a man came into my life that clearly saw that as a great thing to take advantage of for whatever reason, you know, maybe with malice or maybe with not, you know, innocence in his heart. But basically I entered into this relationship and ended up getting married, not really out of my own will, kind of pushed into it, to a man that was incredibly possessive and jealous and abusive, very mentally manipulative, you know, very tricky. And I was even like it was like being segregated away from my friends, my family. We moved house and I literally was like a prisoner in that house. If I spoke to anybody on the phone, he would come home from work and interrogate me. I wasn't allowed to have a car. I wasn't allowed to have my own money. I wasn't allowed to work. I wasn't really allowed to do anything. I couldn't even speak to people that he knew that were his friends or even my family. I remember wanting to go to help my mum and dad pack up their family home in Wales, and he got insanely angry and jealous, and because I insisted on going, I paid for it when I got back. And this was just to be with my own family. So this man was really very dark, let's say, and very frightening to me at the time. He was much older than me. And let's say I was a real victim. It was like being in that movie with Julia Roberts, Sleeping with the Enemy, you know. It was like this scary, scary man, and I was trapped, you know, in this prison of my own house, in this relationship, such a victim, and did not know how to get out of it. And so my first step was to run away. That was the first thing I knew, how to take care of myself. I couldn't stand up to him because he was stronger than me, and he started to use physical force. So I left, I ran away. So that was the step one, getting away from the thing that's causing the external problem. And then this has been a lifelong lesson, right? So then I've gone through other relationships since then, over the last 20 years. And I came to a point where I really realized that I was attracting abusive relationships again and again and again. So another relationship came up. This is another long-term serious relationship. And marriage was looking on the cards, and then this person was very physically violent to me. There was only like 3 or 4 incidents, but you know, it was enough to make me feel very frightened. He's obviously much stronger than me. I'm not used to standing up for myself. I didn't know how to do it. So what I started to do was say, don't bully me, you know, and face back at him. Now he's bigger and stronger than me. But I was like, you know, in my fear, I'm not going to be pushed around. I'm not going to be bullied anymore. I'm not standing for this anymore. You know, I'm standing for my truth. You know, do we recognize any people out there in the world right now who are doing something similar? It's like this, I'm not going to be bullied anymore. You can't do that. I'm still scared of you. You're still bigger than me. You're still more powerful than me. I don't know how I'm going to win against you, but I'm going to definitely try. And that also ended up in me getting burned, like emotionally and physically burned, because he was stronger than me. And he saw me rising up as a threat, as an act of aggression, when I wasn't. I'm trying to say I'm standing up for myself. He took that as aggression and retaliated even harder. And if I'm looking at this incident right now out in Dakota and I'm seeing these people in the protest lines, good, beautiful people saying, we're not having this anymore, coming from that place of their victimhood, but trying to be empowered, and the bully is bigger. The companies are stronger. The oil companies, the banks, the governments are more powerful. The military is more powerful. And there they are, attacking the protesters, attacking the innocent people as if they are the bad guys, as if they are the ones being aggressive. And we're seeing it the opposite way around. We're seeing the military and the police attacking these people, going, you guys are the bullies. But the bullies, actually, from their side of the story, see the other person, what we think is the victim. They see the victim as the one starting the attack. Well, you started the protest. You told me I'm not allowed to carry on doing what I want to do. you've got in my face, I have every right to defend myself. And that's what a bully will say. And that's what Dapple's saying. That's what the military is saying. We've got every right. You're the one causing the problem. You're getting in our way. Do you understand? So the situation flips round. What we think is the bully becomes, they think they're the victim. And then the victims become the bullies. And it's a bit like, well, who's who? What's the truth? And almost like it takes both sides to play out that story of the victim and the bully. And those roles are reversible. So in my instance, this partner of mine, he accused me of being the bully. And he started acting like the victim, even though he was the one that had actually physically attacked me and burned me. It's nuts, right? But that's the way he was thinking. And it was like, so I had to take that on board and go, wow. So trying to stand up for myself in this way just puts me like the shoes on the other foot. You know, I become the aggressor. Is that who I am? No. But am I this victim? Am I this victim? Am I then helpless? No. What am I going to do? And it takes something to completely kind of transcend out of that whole pattern, victim-aggressor pattern. It takes something else. And so then this is what I've learned since then. And this is what I obviously can help other people with, but doing it in your own life is always, you know, taking your own medicine is always the challenge. And so for me it was, okay, let me go and meet the victim in me. Let me meet the one that thinks that she's weak, that thinks that she's smaller and helpless, and doesn't know how to stand up for herself and is used to being abused and bullied. I mean, you know, I was raped as a teenager. I understand abuse. I understand how it feels to be victimised. And it's painful to go and meet that part and without getting stuck in it. So, but to honestly go with a sense of courage, with a sense of, okay, let me shine a little bit of light of awareness in this darkness and go and meet this part of me. Meet the terror, meet the fear. And grieve for that. So there's a grieving process of acknowledging exactly how much pain has been suffered. And that needs to be done in group, that needs to be done in community, that needs to be done with loved ones and friends. Grieving is not something you're supposed to do on your own. It doesn't really work. That's just crying alone. And crying alone is not the same as proper grieving. You need to have a space to be witnessed, to be held. So whether that's done as a one-on-one with your therapist or whether that's done in a group, it needs to be done. And acknowledging that pain. And then what needs to happen is I need to start to forgive and release from myself what I have hoarded inside of me, all my memories, all my stories, all my reasons for feeling this way. It's like decluttering my space. I need to forgive them. I need to give it out. I need to release it from me. And in that process, I'm also going to have to release the people that I've attached to me. I'm going to have to release my aggressors and say, okay, well, if I don't forgive you, then I'm still a victim. You know? Or I can forgive my aggressor, but if I haven't forgiven myself, I'm still the victim, and my victim little, you know, hook will latch onto somebody else. And somebody else and somebody else until that's released. Because this is what we do. We cast out hooks and we open ourselves up to being hooked back, like little fishing lines attaching to each other and attaching to, you know, behaviours and patterns and trying to get our needs met and really trying to have these deep personal stories relieved and our history changed. Now, I want history to change. I don't want to see a repeat of these people that are very dear to my heart in America having their lands taken over again, having their families killed, having all their children killing themselves because they're in a victim place. I want that to change. I want the world to change. I want the war in Syria to change. I want all the refugee situation to change. I want the suffering in the world to change. And I know that it's only going to change like my reality has changed because I did the work inside me. I did the forgiveness. I did the grieving. I've had to have humility and love for myself to do that. Deep, deep love, deep compassion. And when I say self-love, I'm not talking skin deep, like I look in the mirror all day long going, oh, I love you, me, I'm so wonderful. I mean, yes, do that too, but it's not skin deep. This is deep, deep. This is deep down, going into the pain and suffering, loving myself enough to change my internal world so that I can then have a transformational effect on my external world. You know, as it is within, so it is without. And I think the greatest impact that we can have on this planet right now in this time of madness and utter crisis is to go inside and look at our own fears, look at our own victimisation, look at where we've been too small and hidden out and shied down and not spoken up, and go and meet those parts of ourselves before we start bringing it to, or maybe not before, maybe as well as bringing it to the picket lines or bringing it to the protest lines. You know, check yourself. Where are you praying from? Are you praying from a place of victimhood? Are you praying from a place of empowerment where you have transformed and you're coming from a place of you're not holding pain, but you're holding the love, you're holding that light, you're holding a space of transformation that you've already done in your life for yourself first. And I think if each one of us takes responsibility, not for the whole state of the world, but for our part in it, and we can pass that message along, take responsibility for me. How do I feel? How am I responding? What's my energetic contribution? Can I align myself? Can I correct my energy so that I'm coming from my truth, I'm coming from my power and my place of love? And then I'm a light in the world. And I'm not going to be adding to the aggression. Does that make sense? So that's how I see things working. I know that that's what's worked for me in my life, and that's how it can work for you and for all of us. I truly, deeply believe that. So check in, see how that feels for you. And if it does, maybe just pass the message along to the next person. Yeah, take responsibility for you. Come home, come clear, come in love, move into peace, forgive and release, and tell the next person. I can help with this, by the way. I have a retreat coming up. It's on Friday. Actually, no, not this Friday. The retreat starts on the 26th, 27th of November. It's just a weekend, and it's going to be very cozy and very beautiful. And I'll take you through the journey of releasing and healing these deep attachments that we have to victimization, not being loved, not being treated properly, maybe in your relationships being abused, and where that kind of holds you back and keeps you stuck and stops you from being in your power, or stops you moving forward in your love relationships, or being an effective light in the world. You know, we're going to kind of cover that whole space over the weekend. So if you're interested in that, there's a link below. The booking ends in 2 days, so I wanted to just give you a shout out. But if you see this video and that date's passed, it doesn't matter, because there's always going to be new events and new things that I'm going to be doing available on my website. So you can just check the link and check me out and see what I've got going on, because it'd be really wonderful to share more with you, actually in person, live, face to face. All right, so much love to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening and allowing me to share. I love you. Love yourself. Bye.